Good morning, cellists. Here we are in the last lesson on the Allemande. And yesterday we looked at the E major arpeggio and E7 as our part of our technical warm-ups. And that was because in this second section of the Allemande, Bach actually modulates to A minor, and that the E major and E7 are the dominant chords that prepare us to arrive there, E to A. So we had this dominant seventh, arrive at an A, and in this case if you arrive at an A you can't tell whether that's major or minor, but we know it's going to be minor. So today I think it would be useful for us to look at A minor arpeggio, and I'm only looking at one octave because of the use in the Allemande, how we apply it. So here we have in first position, extremely straightforward, 1 4 1 open, and one can keep the fingers on the strings whilst you play the open A, so we really minimise the movement of the hand, be very ergonomic there. And now moving on from that very simple fragment, let's just take an even more open chord, but don't put the C in it, but instead, so we've just got A, E, A. Now if I take my other fingers away, you can see a very flattened finger straight across the middle two strings for this perfect fifth. And we could play the chord as two strings and two strings pivoting like this. And it's really important, the perfect fourth, which is the upper part of this chord, can very easily be out by a fraction, and it's extremely noticeable. Now, what we need to consider is the position of this finger to make a good perfect fifth. It's not straight across perpendicular, because if you do that you're going to get a very out of tune fourth at the top. It'd be very, very wonky, that fourth, and the fifth isn't quite right either. You can get away with it, but not as soon as you add in the fourth at the top. Now the reason why this doesn't work to be completely straight across here is because of the curvature of the fingerboard and obviously the bridge. So to take account of that, you're actually going to be effectively looking as if you're pointing at your face, so you can have your elbow slightly dropped, and then you'll get a good perfect fifth. So that's what I suggest you do. So initially just a broken chord like this, and then in two parts. So we get a good perfect fifth. You can really tell when you play the open A if you've got it right. Now we can also transition the same shape, 1 1 on the top two strings with an open G. Now that is an E minor chord, and there's a perfect fifth here, with the first finger again flat on the strings. This is more perpendicular because the curvature is getting much, much more gradual. It's very slight on the upper two strings. Both of these have direct relevance to the Allemande. So this perfect fifth is at the end of bar 23. And the second perfect fifth is in the resolution at bar 24. Now that's the reason I didn't go up until bar 24 yesterday, which is it would be quite a logical point to have got to, but it's because we've got a couple of technical issues to look at, which I felt were better put in today's lesson. Now, final point on those preparations. So we've looked at the two types of chords using the perfect fifth there. For those of you who want a little bit more to chew on, why not think about a sequence of chords? So you could have the open A chord, then you could add in a C natural for A minor, then a C sharp for A major, then a G natural for A7, and then a D chord, 1 1 3 4. And obviously that last one's a 4-note chord. Quite a nice little sequence to get you really prepared for the moves of the hand and the strength in the arm, and that when you're holding down more than one string like this, it's quite right for the elbow to be lower than it would be normally if you were just playing on the G string like this. If you're holding other strings, allow your arm weight to help you with that chord. Great. Now let's finish off Feuillard's 10th study. This is beginning at bar 14, which is the third line, last 2 bars. And we've arrived at a stretch 2 on a B natural. And then we're going to do a clean shift into half position. Substitution shift. Where I'm now playing a 2 on the F sharp, ready to stretch back for 1, and I'm going to remain in this stretched position for some bars. Which makes sense of the D sharp, but stay there for the following bar with the D natural. Where you're using a 3rd finger, and stay there still for the following bar, where I use the 3rd finger for G natural, arriving at F sharp with the stretch 2, and then we're already in place for the stretch 4 for the C sharp, and rotate for the F sharp. Now in this fragment, obviously we could have a different solution where we allow the hand to come back into a closed position like this. And then stretch. But in this particular case, the study is exercising you to remain in a stretched position and find the minor shape not closing the hand. So 1 stretch 2 3 rather than 1 3 4. And the end is just purely about rotation. So the last bit of this study then, from bar 14, is this. And that's it. Another kind of quick, swift move in the penultimate bar. Moving across 2-2 before we end, and that's it. Very sweet and simple, and I've already given you the reasons why we've picked it with regard to the Allemande and placement across the bow, the use of the bow. Let's get to the Allemande. So we got to the A minor chord at bar 22. Now there we had the 5th and another 5th, which we discussed at the beginning of the lesson. Now in terms of the trill, you come from a B, so we will be trilling from the upper note. And remembering to point towards your face for this resolution. Now I've chosen to go on the D string here. I think it's quite common in the standard edition to move to D string, swift shift back, now that's definitely the upper voice, and here's the answering lower voice, upper again, lower, lower again, lower again. Now let's just have a little look at those 2 voices. That lower voice, the 5th, then the 7th, another 7th, and then travelling down on a scale. Take care of them. Don't be in a rush to get on with the upper voice, but place carefully. So we lift and arrive. So a bit of a sit down on the arrival note. Now when it comes to do the 7ths, oh gosh, they are super. So really enjoy them. The tension in those 7ths is fantastic. And we'll be coming across those 7ths rising in the prelude next week, where we have halfway through the 2nd page with regard to falling scales that then rise up a 7th. It's a fantastic tool. So really enjoy what Bach has written here. So looking again at those 2 voices, I think they're fairly clear, and that obviously you've risen to bar 26. You know, it really feels like it's a height of dynamic, and that gradually I think it gets a little bit softer. And it's really coming very gently down the hillside, if you like. So going from the lead to bar 26. So you can sort of hear some of that gentleness coming in. You can do some really interesting shaping. And I suppose another comment about that lower voice is that although the arrival note is only written as a semiquaver, don't snatch it being worried about getting to the top voice. If it was truly possible to have it written as a second voice, I'm absolutely certain the implication would be it's another quaver. Obviously we don't have the time for that, but you want to imagine that's what it is, so that you give it a chance to resonate. You know, really a little bit of gentle stroking of the bow, so that it's never snatched. Right, so we've arrived at a lovely G chord at bar 29. And then the subsequent couple of bars is a very dominant kind of sound to it. It pops in a C sharp, which is the leading note to the dominant at the end of this bar, which is another A7 implication. So here it is again. It's all very, very dominant sounding. There's also some lovely undulation, falling and rising here. So really enjoy moving up and down dynamically with the shape. It's absolutely crystal clear that you follow your feeling in this line. At bar 30 through to the end, let's be aware of the lower voice. I mean, in here we have a descending sound. We have a low D, C, so let's just see where those notes are. In bar 30, the second crotchet beat, we arrive at a D. The fourth is a C. To be honest, there's also a hint on the F sharp in the first note of the following bar. And then you'll see the lower notes falling again. So let's just see if we can really focus in on those as I play this little fragment. Here we have. So you could hopefully hear those falling lines. And that the G in here is a 4/3 suspension, in case you hadn't noticed it, which is what we've had previously, waiting to resolve finally on the G chord. So all together then, from where we started today, is bar 22's here. Isn't that glorious? For those of you who have got my marked up bowings, you might have noticed I didn't quite play what I intended for the bowing at the end there. But it's part of our adaptive toolkit as musicians, that if you do something you didn't intend, you can still continue with your shaping and don't give it away. Not at the time of playing, at any rate. Enjoy your explorations, and I look forward to our study of the prelude next week. Bye.